Thanks for tuning in today, folks. So in today's video, we're gonna go over another American traditional eagle. What? Why? This time because we did it from scratch. As in, we didn't use any references, we didn't look at anything, and we just decided to draw it like a real artist. So if that sounds interesting to you, we go over like how to sketch it all in, how to shade it, all of that good stuff so that you can create your own American traditional eagle too, without any references, all from memory. Let's do it, folks. If that sounds interesting to you, I'm Clay, the Techie Tattooer. Let's get to the iPad, or, down here.
Hey, so first off, I just want to kind of show you guys that you can actually change the default background color you have by just clicking on that layer and moving it around a little bit. I ended up actually creating a custom background layer using this spray paint tool here, right? Obviously I didn't use it in black. I just used a bunch of, super pale flesh tones. But yeah, so anyway, that's an option for you guys to do there. If you want to get that look, just go ahead and get a nice bright center and make that happen for you folks with like 3 different colors of, I don't know, whatever that peachy funky color is. So first thing I did there was go ahead and take the stabilization all the way down to 0 on my technical pen, and now I'm ready to sketch out in fast forward. I of course perform the ultimate error here, the cardinal sin of drawing on your background layer. So yeah, folks, it happens to all of us. What you gonna do? You just gotta check to make sure that you're on the right layer, and that's why I always put every single thing on a different layer. Here I am just sketching out the basic form of the eagle. I don't really end up liking that back wing because it's a little bit too big, so I grab my freehand tool and the distort function and just kind of smush that around a little bit. I end up actually not even going with this and going with a unidirectional look, so both wings are actually facing the same direction, but we'll get there when we get there, folks. I slide the opacity down and start a new layer. Go to slightly darker purple here and flesh in a more detailed or less gross version. Here the foot's a little bit too big, and so I resize it there. Get the tail feathers down and the wing, and all of these basic blocks, though, are the basic blocks that are in every American traditional eagle. There are usually 3 sections of feathers to the American traditional eagle. This back wing is almost always of those scale type feathers that I've talked about before, right? And now that I've got this final quote unquote sketch version down, now I'm moving on to my monoline pen, and I'm just going to start drawing in the details. What I'm doing now is making sure that it's not too flat on the back of the neck there or along that eagle head, so it's got a nice curve to it. I decide that nope, nobody needs a smiling eagle, so it better actually be frowning. Yeah, little things like that you'll notice, like, why does it look like a happy turkey? Well, it's because you made him smiling, goob. But, I like my little SE-shaped swoosh lines, so I have a little bit of a problem there. So yeah, that's what that ends up looking like. It's good enough for now. I'm going to change the little nose bump on it a little bit here. But yeah, for the most part, those are the lines I'm going to go with, those little shade lines, as it were, back behind the eye there. And, yeah, I just decided to go down to 2 feather lines within the head there and not those 3, just because I want it to be clean, because always less is more when it comes to American traditional. So you're always going to make sure that you're using the least amount of lines as possible. While that's always true with tattooing, it is especially true with American traditional, where you just, as few details as possible is going to communicate your idea that much better over time, right? And so here we are using the standard kind of crosshatch marks, bringing in the eagle's feet here. It takes me a couple rounds here to experiment with what I really want them to look like. You'll notice that I actually do make sure to leave a little bit of a gap between the eagle's tongue and that front foot there. yeah, I'm using some pretty standard operating procedure things. This scale pattern in the feathering is, go ahead and do your research, but you will see that this is a very, very common treatment for the back wing. It's, I don't really know why Sailor Jerry made it super popular, but it absolutely does make it so that it really does stand out from the front wing. You'll also notice that that little swoop on the front wing there, I guess we'll call it the shoulder piece, is always done in yellow. And there's a bunch of different styles you can do it in, but I am actually keeping this as ultra simple as possible. And so you'll see that I just have like almost like a Bezier curve swoop going on with that shoulder piece there. I did decide to add a third layer of feathers into that just because I liked the way it looked. I didn't like the way just the 2 layers looked. Now, most of this will be shaded in black, as you'll see coming up here. And so these are all going to be considerations to have again when you actually do your full tattoo. You're not going to want to draw in those lines that you've decided to shade solid black. You'll go ahead and emit those from the overall design. And so, that would be the smart thing to do actually for me on that back wing there, is not have all those scale feathers in my final line work piece that I'm going to print out in the stencil, just because you don't want to overwork your client's skin, right? If you're just doing a digital art piece like this, it's not a consideration. Don't worry about it. But, if we're talking for a tattoo thing, right, you'll notice that right here, I end up swallowing a bunch of these little scale feathers in my black shading. And again, that's why it's important to me to, test this stuff out, understand how you're going to shade your piece so that way, as you can see here, we haven't created a bunch of little lines that are just going to disappear into the nothingness. All things that we want to do to our client to make sure that they're happy and not bleeding and having hamburger skin when we're done with them, because hurting people is not fun. Unless you're a sadist, and in that case, stop tattooing, you're a jerk. Anyway, yeah, I'm just going through and changing up, my shading on this a little bit, just so that I've got a nice curved pattern that goes along with the design of the wing there. You can see that because I'm selecting things all willy-nilly, I end up having a weird sort of hump here in the shading that I've got to get rid of. But yeah, once I do that, we go right back into fast forward mode here, and I just start blocking out all the other shading nice and quick. You'll see that I just grab all the flat feathers all at once and then just give them a nice swoop through. Again, things to consider is, maybe you wouldn't take those feather lines all the way into the next feather if you knew you were going to black them out like that. Here I'm using a fun little trick where I take the shading layer and drop the opacity down, and instead of selecting anything, I just go ahead and, with the wrong eraser tool, but I go back to my syrup pen and I erase out the feet, the little toesies there, so that, instead of just say selecting with the, what's it called? The manual selecting tool, the lasso tool there, right? Freehand. That's what it's called in Procreate. And so instead of using the freehand tool, I am just showing you guys that there are other options. There's a million ways to skin a cat with digital art. And so it's really up to you and what, you find zen and what you find, comforting, and what is a nice, good workflow for you that gets you into your Bob Ross mode, right? That's going to be, whatever works for you is what works. So, figure it out, play with it, and just make sure that you're having a good time. And that's really the most important part to creating art, is that you are enjoying your process. So for the most part here, I'm going to add another layer duplicate the shading layer, and then work on a separate layer here, because I'm going to do a thing here where I'm erasing out, now I'm erasing out this highlight line that you can do in the wings. Now, this is not something you have to do at all. It's because even though I'm trying to do the simplest American traditional piece, I just can't help myself sometimes. But you will see this right? And this is the great thing about digital art and being able to experiment. If I didn't like what I did here, that's why I duplicated the shading layer, and I could always just bounce back and forth between them, turning them off and on, and deciding which one really resonated with me after the fact, or maybe even what resonated with my client if I wanted to give them, a full render of their piece. Also, I am kind of doing a two-phase thing here where I'm going to shade in these tail feathers nice and dark so that you can kind of see like what my treatment would be if we were to do a pure black and gray tattoo, right? Like if we weren't going to add color to this at all, this is how I would do the treatment of these back tail feathers. And you'll see later on in the video when I go to put the red in the tail feathers, I actually back off this black shading quite a bit. Again, another handy reason why duplicating your layers and having just some extras floating around can be really, really nice, because that way you can switch back to a different layer and not have to erase anything or try to undo your way back to a previous version. That's kind of the stuff that I took from coding, right? I guess you could call it version control, if you will. And so, when it comes to digital art, I am a little bit obsessed with version control. Go GitHub. And those things really can help out a lot in digital art. Just having a good workflow practice, and it may seem like, you're wearing your seatbelt when you don't need to, but man, when you do need it, it's really nice to have it. So obviously that's not where the nose hole goes on an eagle. So that's why it is good to have references, and that's why I actually like real life references, because it can stop you from making mistakes like that if you're looking at a real eagle's face. So never underestimate the power of an actual living reference. They're awesome. And because I am kind of pretending that this is going to be the pure black and gray version, right? Just like a blackwork style eagle. That's how I decide to do the feathers on the back end there, because it makes it fade into the background a little bit more, makes it the darkest part. But that's that, right? That's what I would do if that was a pure black and gray traditional eagle piece. Now I'm just going through and I'm doubling up or duplicating up my shading layers, and then I'm going to start dropping in color here just to show you guys what some other options are for this. You can totally disagree with my choice to go super, super down and dirty fast and have all of those back scale feathers be in yellow. I could absolutely see a very valid argument for actually making some of them brown and having just that last outer layer be yellow, but I'm not worrying too much about this. This is more of a tutorial on technique, not so much on exactly how to design the perfect American Eagle tattoo. I personally love the little red tip spikes, so I do that. Again, that's just because I'm a little bit extra. A lot of folks never do them at all. So yeah, you're going to have to just get your individual style here. And like I said, once I dropped the red into this tail, I realized, I'm not really into that. That is just super heavy, super dark. And so I go through here, I duplicate that shading layer, and then decide to erase it out. So here I am futzing with things, squishing layers down, etc., etc. And the reason I'm doing this again is just in case I need to show you guys at a later time what the other version looks like. I don't end up doing that, but it's just good to have, right? Again, version control, I highly recommend it. You won't be sad for doing a little bit extra here and there, right? I add a little bit of white space there or skin break, and that's pretty much going to be the design, folks, right? Give it a little back out to see if it looks good small, zoom it back in to see if it looks good all up close, but I'm pretty happy with it. I do end up adding a little bit of brown to them at the end here, but that is totally unnecessary. It's not needed at all, but you know me, I always go extra, so this brown is definitely not needed, but it's something you can do. You can barely even see it, but hey, why not go the extra mile for clients you like? So yeah, That's the piece, folks. I hope you learned a little bit about how to design your own American traditional tattoo and why I make the choices that I made. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time.